All right, now, since we're in Halloween territory, let's talk about Halloween. So apparently, there's a new book. I don't know if it's out yet, and I'm sure in the article they mentioned the name of the book or whatever the case is. But anyway, there's a book that's out or coming out that's supposed to be celebrating the past, the 15 years of Blumhouse, and since it's been 3 years since Hollywood Ends, which has been divisive to a lot of people. There are people who love it. There are people who absolutely hate it. I don't know if there's anybody relatively in the middle that feels in between about that film. I teeter more on the side of I liked Halloween Ends, and I definitely compartmentalize that film as well because my thing is this: I'm sort of like Halloween Ends wasn't a good movie, but as a part of a trilogy, it sucks. As a standalone movie, it's good. The whole thing with Corey Cunningham and all that other mess, that was unnecessary for you to kind of add that character that had no kind of connection to the Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills. You bring in this new character. I know the most thing that people are really upset about with that film is the fact that how this scrawny little kid who was getting beat up by a bunch of band geeks, which they were like, oh, that's not realistic. Band geeks aren't bullies. I'm like, where the fuck have you been? Yes, they are. I mean, I hate the idea that people always think that jocks are always the big bullies or whatever the case. When I was in school, I was a floater, so I didn't really get in a lot of drama. Yeah, I got into fights, but for the most part, I was always floating around in different groups and stuff when I was growing up. But yeah, some of them band geeks, they're just as obnoxious a pain in the ass too. So that part was believable. And people was getting annoyed because they were saying like, oh, how's he getting beat up by these people? But then he can go and wrestle Michael Myers in a cave and steal his mask. And I'm sitting there like, Michael Myers got stabbed, beat up in the second one before he recharged, got his little power, whatever, and started fucking everybody up, including um Laurie's daughter, which I hated the fact that she was supposed to be going after him at the end, and then they kind of just scrapped that and then went into because I have that version where she's like, I'm coming for you, Michael, and you hear him breathing in the phone. I do have that version of the film that I own. But it was kind of annoying how they just kind of scrapped that and all of a sudden it's years later and she's writing a memoir. And so I'm just like, so I don't think they knew what the hell they was going to do with that last movie. And then, like you already said, that another issue I had with the film was like, you spend so much time on Corey Cunningham and the whole relationship with Allison and all this other stuff. Well, y'all wasted her. Y'all didn't seem like y'all didn't know what to do with that character. And then it's like when we get to the third act, all of a sudden y'all was like, oh, wait a minute. The movie's almost over. It's been almost 2 hours and we haven't resolved anything between Michael and Laurie. And so we got to throw in this fight scene in the kitchen between them. It was just the movie has its issues, but I've found a common ground of appreciating the what's the word? The risks, I guess, that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride took with that film. So you put an A for effort with that. It wasn't a perfect film, but I will say that I like that y'all kind of took big swings with the film. But anyway, so for many years, shout out to Bloody Disgusting for this story, by the way. For many years, the most controversial installment in the Halloween franchise was Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which is another movie that I've grown fond of. I know a lot of people hated that movie because it was like, it wasn't no Michael Myers in it. But I like the idea that they took the Halloween title and was like, let's create anthologies. But nobody wanted it. They wanted Michael Myers going around killing people. And so that's what they had to keep coming up with because it was making the studios and the Akkad family a lot of money. So yeah, so that was the most controversial movie at the time. But with that oddball entry becoming more and more beloved as the years go on, the new world champion in that department may as well be Halloween Ends. Released in 2022, Ends was the final installment in David Gordon Green's legacy sequel trilogy, tasking itself with wrapping up the Michael and Laurie Strode story while also introducing a brand new shape into the mix with Rowan Campbell's Corey Cunningham. Sidebar, they started releasing new trailers for Silent Night Deadly Night, which Rowan Campbell is in, and he's playing Billy, the killer. I'm looking forward to seeing that movie in December. So if you're not even aware that that movie was coming out, that they did a remake and Rowan Campbell is playing the killer, definitely check out the trailer. A new trailer dropped today on YouTube. So if you get a chance, definitely check that out. So The character in his role of Halloween Ends proved divisive, to say the least, with most fans looking for one thing and one thing only from Ends, a satisfying conclusion to the Laurie versus Michael saga that began back in 1978 with John Carpenter's original slasher classic, a final battle that a few films before it, including Halloween 2018, had claimed to be. And I have to say this, feel like no shade, but y'all dropped the ball twice in regarding the Michael Laurie battle. I felt like, even though I love Halloween H2O, I felt like that movie was rushed. I also in a lot of sequences, and plus that fight sequence at the end felt rushed. Although I will say the fight scene in Halloween H2O was way better. Even though like in the school scene, that scene was too short. But I did like the scene when it was just like she had him up in the van, she steals the van, they drive, he comes out because the zipper wasn't all the way, obviously, so he could open it up and get out. Yeah, I noticed the edit issues and stuff in that movie too. And how he gets stuck to the van flips over, he flies out, and then well, he didn't fly out, actually. Actually, he did fly when she put on the brakes and went through the window. Then he gets up, she drives into him. Then she puts on the brakes. He flies. The car flips. Well, van flips, and then he gets pinned. And then she goes and chops his head off. That would have been a great conclusion. Then they're gonna come in and do that horrible ass movie with Busta Rhymes, which we're not gonna get into. But I would say that scene was good. The fight scene also in Ends was pretty interesting. I liked the kind of going back and forth, the way they was fucking each other up. I was living for that. But I just feel like y'all dropped the ball twice in regards of giving Lori that resolution that she needed. Y'all still dropped the ball with that, and I feel like at this point, leave it alone. We don't need Jamie Lee Curtis to come back, and we don't need y'all tampering with that story no more. Maybe if y'all want to go and do Jamie Lloyd's story or whatever case in a different alternate universe, that would be cool. But at this point, I'm just like, can we start over and come up with a whole new idea surrounding Michael Myers and some new breed of kids? Because this whole Laurie story has been it's been done to death at this point. I'm ready to move on to some new people that aren't related to him, or just a new kids that he just happens to come across. But make him a whole new Michael Myers, make him younger, have him in present day, disregard all the other movies, just make it your own thing. But just tell a new story. And not have him be old like y'all did in this one. But it makes sense because it's supposed to be a legacy sequel. He had to be old. So then they said that Halloween Ends comes to a close because we're going to tell you the scene that was the original idea. And I think they said Halloween Dies was supposed to be the original name. And I think that was a take on the whole Evil Dies Tonight situation. I fucking hate it when they were saying that to other people. Evil Dies Tonight. Evil Dies Tonight. I'm like, I want to jump through this damn TV and kill all of y'all that keep saying that stupid Evil Dies Tonight line because it got on my nerves. I was irritated. But I understand it was for the movie. It was they thought it was working. It was not working in my opinion, but whatever. So they said it comes to a close with Laurie killing Michael once and for all, as we saw a thing she also done a couple of times before. Because remember, we at the end after she done stabbed him and they broke his arm, split in half, and all the other thing, and then Allison came in and helped kill him, and after everything, and then they went and they tied his body to the vehicle. Then they threw him in the industrial shredder. So it was like, yeah, he was pretty much done, and the whole town of Haddonfield watched so they could see like evil basically died. But no, evil always lingers. So that was the original ending where she was supposed to get back to a semblance of a normal life. But they said, but as the original ending of Halloween Ends would have been a bit different in the wake of Michael's disposal, as Jamie Lee Curtis notes in the new book, which is called Horror's New Wave, 15 years of Blumhouse, an original ending took us into a mask factory, while another would have quite literally had an evil from Michael Myers into the body of Laurie Strode. So yeah, so they were basically kind of do similar to how when it came with Corey Cunningham, where it was kind of like they were trying to take ideas from well, they did use inspiration from Christine, which was when Arnie Cunningham went and got that car, which we found out the guy he bought it from and killed his brother. And then when he went and got the car pretty much fixed itself up, and the car was basically feeding off of him and vice versa. That was kind of like the inspiration they did with the whole Michael thing. That when Corey and Michael kind of had this connection. They were feeding off of each other, and Michael's energy was recharging because of when Corey would kill and vice versa. So they were trying to do it like the evil was transferable, which I thought was a pretty interesting idea that they were tackling. they didn't execute it all that great, but I thought that would be an interesting idea. Like, yeah, because remember at one point, remember they tried to do that at the end of Halloween 4 when Michael was supposed to have died, and he went and touched his niece, and then they told her back when they shot his ass up. And then all of a sudden, she went at the end. She went and stabbed her mother with the scissors, the adopted mother, in the bathroom, which is telling the little child all that blood and stuff you went through. I'm gonna get you in the tub, and wipe your ass. So then that whole situation, I think they try to dabble into that idea from Halloween 4, and then they try to do with this movie. So, um, they were trying to say, yeah, that after Lori went and killed Michael, that energy would have went into her. But then again, she's encountered him so many times. Why didn't that happen back in 1978? So that wouldn't have made sense. Also, this whole idea where y'all were trying to do the whole Halloween 3 mask thing, that wouldn't have worked for this either because Halloween 3 was its own individual movie. And John Carpenter has said many a times, Michael was evil on two legs. Michael, it was basically it was about atmosphere. He was the shape. He was just the personification of evil. So the mask did not make him do the things he did. He was just that way, whether or not he had the mask or anything. Because he ain't had no mask on when he escaped Haddonfield, the mental institution. So the math thing, making him evil, didn't make sense necessarily. That was an idea I think they were just trying to play off with the whole Corey Cunningham having maybe hiding behind Michael's mask because it gave him the cojones to go and kill, so he could hide behind the personification of Michael Myers and Haddonfield and that whole thing hovering over him, or him hovering, his evil hovering over that town. Maybe that was what they were thinking in a metaphorical way or whatever. But no, the mask was not the whole mask evil thing. No, that wouldn't have worked. I'm glad they scrapped that. So yeah, they were talking about basically, as I said, because as I was ranting on about that, my own thoughts. The original ending of Halloween Ends, originally entitled Halloween Dies, was a scene in a mask factory. This is what Jamie Lee Curtis said. She said, "You see a conveyor belt of masks being manufactured. The Michael Myers mask, which was saying we're all monsters if you put on the mask. It's not just Michael, it's all of us if we wear the mask, and yet somehow it didn't satiate. I think it was too intellectual for this finale. It was a big swing, and I honor the support the big swing." And the one thing I've always said, I love you, Jamie Lee Curtis, but sometimes you talk to the point where I just be like, girl, you always be trying to sound smarter than you actually are. Because no, I don't think it was too intellectual. I think it's insulting the intelligence of the Halloween fans. And remember, you said you're not a big horror movie fan, or whatever the case was. So yeah, your career has benefited wholeheartedly from Halloween because you are I wouldn't say the original Scream Queen. The original Scream Queen kind of would be your mother, but you were of that time, you were the big Scream Queen. Now, I guess with this generation, well, the generation of my generation, it would be Nev Campbell with the Scream movies. I don't know who the new Scream Queen will be of this generation because I don't even think y'all have an IP where somebody stands out where they're their own franchise of Scream Queen. But what her saying that is like, no, I feel like you're insulting the intelligence of those of us who are big Halloween fans. It's like, no, it wasn't too intellectual. It doesn't fit who Michael was. It said, oh, we're all monsters at the end of the day. We put on the mask. And it's like, no. I mean, it's a nice big swing, but no, it wouldn't have worked for this franchise. So she said there was also an ending in which we explored and filmed a sort of transference between Laurie and Michael. In the final killing of Michael, Laurie almost became him. In the second of Glory, taking the life of Michael Myers, she became Michael Myers. She has to go away at this point. She has to revert back to the Laurie we met in the first film. She has to isolate herself for the rest of her life because she now has a piece of Michael in her, but it was too dark and too profound to satisfy the hunger of this 40-year journey. And we changed it in this procession where the town of Haddonfield quietly bears witness to the end of Michael. Then Laurie goes back to her house in the final scenes. So yeah, it doesn't make sense because it's like, no, we're not having that whole transference of evil because you've encountered him in the past. So why didn't you become Michael back in 1978 when, you know, you was stabbing him up and all that other stuff? But then again, Dr. Loomis shot him 6 times out the window and then he vanished. So then he said it was Jamie Lee Curtis who insisted upon the happy ending between Laurie and Frank on the front porch outside Laurie's house at Haddonfield, intended to, in her own words, give hope that they're going to end up in Japan and that Laurie's going to get a shot at life. And then, well, the shape makes one last appearance, sort of. The very last shot of Halloween End shows the Michael mask sitting on a coffee table in Laurie's house, suggesting that she can never fully move past her own personal boogeyman. Saying, I think there was an ambiguity and there was an ambiguity to it intentionally. This is what she explains in Horror's New Wave 15 Years of Blumhouse. I think it has the same effect that the original idea for the Mask Factory spewing out Michael Myers' mask would have had. Would that have been a Silver Shamrock Mask Factory? Perhaps. Halloween Ends is, after all, the Halloween 3 season of The Witch of David Gordon Green's trilogy. That is a fact, though. That's the one thing I would say out of this whole thing is like, yeah, Halloween Ends is David basically the Halloween 3 of his franchise. And I truly believe that maybe a decade, maybe two from now, people will kind of look back on Halloween Ends and be like, you know what, that movie wasn't as bad as I remembered. I mean, like I said, I applaud any movie that takes big swings and tries out for different stuff. But I'm actually glad that they scrapped those other ideas. The whole Silver Shamrock, the whole conveyor belt of Michael Myers mask. No, that wouldn't have worked. Even though metaphorically, like we were saying, that this is Halloween Ends was the Halloween 3 season of the Witch of the franchise. But yeah, that wouldn't have worked. And I'm glad that they scrapped that original ending. And yeah, they said they wrote it, but they never filmed it. And I'm kind of glad that yeah, it was like we wrote it in the script. We thought about filming it. We kind of looked at it and it was like, no. But I still stand on 10 toes down on the fact that I love Season of the Witch. Love, love, love that movie. And then on top of that, also Halloween Ends. I don't hate it as much as everybody else does. I appreciate them for what they did. You know, the as I said, the swings that they took for that film. But like I said, that movie is very divisive. People either love it or they hate it. There's no in between. So I say all this to say, what do you guys think of this story? Would you have loved to have seen those two different alternate endings? Do you think it would have fit in with the Halloween franchise, or do you think they did the right thing by scrapping it? I'm glad you revealed that in the book, and y'all didn't go and film it and put it in a thing and waste that money, and then y'all have to show it in front of a test audience, and they be like, "Oh hell no, get rid, we don't like it," and then y'all got to go in and do reshoots. So let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments down below.